Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 9th edition of our webinar series. Today, we have a talk-cum-workshop on dynamic culture and communication by Dr. Dolan Gupta, an independent business consultant. The session will be moderated by Dr. Naveen Mohini Nigam. During the presentation, Dr. Dolan Gupta will receive the questions on the chat box and you may post them. And she will make this presentation an interactive presentation by responding to your questions. Before the presentation begins, we will have a brief introduction to LTI, which is perhaps the oldest and the largest association of English language teachers in the country. This video will give you a comprehensive picture of our activities and the benefits you have as its members. Sit back, relax, and watch this video. Xavier, over to you. Thank you, Dr. Xavier. Today's session on culture and communication will be moderated by Dr. Naveen Mohini Nigam. It's my pleasure to introduce her to you. She is a very senior academician with more than 40 years of teaching experience. She has been a teacher trainer, and an administrator in the course of her long career. She has published extensively both in India and abroad, and is recognized as a serious researcher in the field of English language studies. Dr. Nigam got the necessary impetus to put her ideas to work as the principal of MMV Postgraduate College and later as Dean, Faculty of Arts at Kanpur University, CSJM University, Kanpur. We are happy she has agreed to be the moderator for today's session. Madam, you're welcome. And now I hand over the session to you. Dr.
Thank
Nigam.
you. Thank you, Professor Mohanraj. I will first introduce the speaker of the day, Ms. Dolon Gupta. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Our speaker of the day, Ms. Dolon Gupta, is Head, Culture and Language Initiatives, Tata Consultancy Services. Yeah? Is it okay now?
It's better. Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Ms. Dolon Gupta is Head, Culture, Language Initiatives, Tata Consultancy Services. She is a trainer. She is an expert in the strategies of communication, specifically articulation, intercultural communication, and management. Well versed in soft skills, she is an expert in the acquisition of natural languages. She enabled individuals and groups to develop skills that help leverage multicultural and multilingual environments. Curriculum development, public speaking, communication, training, and development are her areas of focus. Experienced in content building, faculty development, she is handling the task of providing training solutions to enhance collaboration and productivity of 450,000 plus workforce comprising of 100 plus nationality and languages. Wonderful, amazing. She has a direct experience in working on integration projects across countries in Latin America, North America, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. She is assistant professor at University of Mumbai. She is a visiting professor of French at University of Delhi and Calcutta. She did her MA in French language from CIEFL and her MA in English from Jadavpur University and BA honors from Loreto College. She is passionate about art, culture, children, education, and human rights. So we have such a figure amongst us who has done a lot. Just look at her and see the volume of work that she is doing in communication, in the field of communication and in cultural studies. May I start the introduction of the topic now? Today's topic of workshop is dynamic culture and communication. Dynamic culture and communication. Culture is fluid rather than static, which means that culture changes all the time in subtle and intangible ways. Humans communicate and express their cultural systems in a variety of ways. Cultures are created through communication, and communication is the means of interaction through which cultural characteristics, whether customs, roles, rules, rituals, law, or other patterns, are created and shared. Culture is the byproduct of social interaction. We can understand that culture is created, shaped, transmitted, and learned through communication. So communication acts as a bridge between cultures and as a force behind cultural change. Communication plays an important role while adapting to new relationships, groups, organizations. Communication is essential for the functioning of any organization. Researchers indicate that both communication medium and cultural imperatives influence perceptions of communication and its effectiveness. When business is expanding and the world is looking like a global village, people are constantly migrating to different places of the world for work, for business, education, etc. We look forward to providing them with efficient tools of communication for understanding the dynamics of culture and for adjusting in different cultures. Today's workshop is an effort in this direction. We need to know how to cope up with the multicultural and multilingual environment, how to communicate effectively, what are the skills people should acquire in today's competitive environment. We look forward to listen to various nuances and micro-level strategies in this direction in today's workshop on dynamic culture and communication. Over to Ms. Dolan Gupta.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nigam, for the introduction and also for setting the tone for the session. Just one point about the introduction. Today, I'm an independent business consultant, but what you have mentioned, yes, that is what has shaped me. That is what has shaped my culture. I've been part of academics, part of corporate. So it's very much present in this. Yes.
Welcome.
And I couldn't have introduced the session better. So I think you've made my task easy because you've explained culture, communication, and the link between the two so clearly. So I'm not even going to go and do that because you've done it already. The only additional aspect that I would like to introduce before I start the workshop is that in such an environment where things are so dynamic, that is, it's multicultural, multilingual, and things are constantly changing at such phenomenal speed, that what is it that we have to learn in order to be able to cope with such a dynamic environment around us? And there is one skill that stands out in this. There are multiple skills, and one of them is cognitive flexibility. That is what is that does help in trying to, keeping sane in such an ambiguous and uncertain world. So cognitive flexibility is one such factor. And what I would like to do today is that we as English language teachers or trainers, how can we introduce that skill in classrooms, English language classrooms? So not just what is culture and what is communication, a bit more I'll probably go into it, and cognitive flexibility, but also I would like to present a couple of activities that we can do inside a classroom to develop this aspect. So I'll just a minute, I'll start sharing my screen. Before I do that, welcome everyone. A very warm good afternoon to everyone. I have seen that people have joined from all over the country. So I'm so happy to be here. And thank you to LTI for inviting me. I just wanted to check, is my screen visible? Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Just a minute. Arrow symbol next to, yes. Yeah, audio setting, all right. I've clicked on it. I have a speaker, so I should move it up. Input level. Yes. Yes, I do have that. Okay, I have to untick the automatically adjust and I move it. By any chance, is it better now? Okay, sure. I'll just go back to the screen share. Right. Just wanted to ask once again, is my screen visible? Thank you. And the voice is audible as well. Thank you. So I will, these are going to be the context of today's session, that what are those factors that drive the dynamism of culture and communication? What are those aspects, those elements, those factors that are involved in this change? How these factors impact the change, and then cognitive flexibility, of course, and how would we inculcate cognitive flexibility inside a classroom. So, yes. So there are three external factors. The first one would be the people around us, our family members, our friends, our peers. It could be colleagues if somebody is a student, fellow students, figures of authority, and anyone that our neighbors. So these are the people around us who are influencing what we think. And the more people we meet, the different kinds of thought processes we encounter. And what we also have to understand is all of them are not identical. Especially, we cannot straitjacket anyone into a kind of unique culture or typical culture. There is nothing like typical. There could be two people with an identical background, but they might think differently. They might feel differently. So the influence that comes in from people is always very varied. Next is the ecosystem around us. That is our home. It could be the educational institute. It could be the company we work for. And today, in today's world, it would be the social media, the digital system, all the structures, the political, the economic, the social structures, the religious structures. That is the ecosystem that surrounds us, of which we are absorbing. We are part of that, and we are absorbing that. So apart from people, it is again the ecosystem. And especially when today we are a globalized world, we are exposed to much more than just our immediate ecosystem. Again, a lot of conflicting values, different values, contrasting values are what we will be exposed to. And the third aspect is information. It's textbooks, storybooks, newspapers, and today, especially again, social media. Information is coming in. We know WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, information is coming in. So the modern mind it's being bombarded by a lot of data, a lot of information. And all this is passed through what is our internal aspect. That is our own personal repository, our own mind, thoughts, feelings, our personal experiences. I mean, two people, just let's assume hypothetically, have been exposed to the identical set of people, the identical ecosystem, identical sources of information. Even then, what shapes their mind is not identical because the personal filter is different. So this is the fourth driver of the change that happens. And when it passes through that filter, the value systems and beliefs come of the individual. We know that there are some value systems and beliefs that a country may share, that an organization may share, that a group may share, but we might belong to multiple groups, multiple thought processes. And what evolves finally for us is a very unique kind of value system. And that is what we would call culture. Now, culture is a term, it has multiple meanings. It could be culture with a big C, that is, the arts, the heritage, literature, the architecture of a land, that is culture. It can be intercultural factors like how does one work across organizations, the professional aspect. It could be organizational culture, that is the company's culture. It could be a group culture, it could be a team culture. There could be multiple kinds of culture. And none of these are really watertight. There is a bit of spilling that happens between them, and which is only natural. And the individual stands at the center and develops a very unique culture, which is a bit of a mix of everything. in cultural studies, what we often see is the national culture. This is the way Indians are, this is the way Germans are, this is the way the Japanese are. But we know very well, today we have about 100 participants in the Zoom itself. And if we compare even two, if we pick two of the 100 participants and we compare, we can definitely say they are not identical. We are not identical. Each one is unique. So somewhere much beyond the national cultures, team cultures, group cultures, there is an individual culture that happens. And in today's world, it is encouraged, the personal opinion. And this culture or this mindset that we have, the value systems and the beliefs that we developed, finally externalize through language. And that is where communication comes in, and it is so closely linked, because what we say is finally a reflection of what is inside us. And so people, ecosystem, information, these are the external drivers. The personal repository, that's the internal driver. And these four put together create the culture that happens. It is true that there is an internal, individual and unique culture, but just to elaborate on this point and make it a little more simple, I just wanted you to take a look at this. Now, there are English teachers here. I think you would understand immediately that this is from Canterbury Tales. And this belongs to the medieval era, where if we say who are the people who are most important over here, it is a highly religious setup in the medieval ages. And if we see the words that are predominant words, we'll find knight, nun, friar, pastor, the pardoner, which are all religious words. And the entire book, Canterbury Tales, it's about a pilgrimage. So it is a reflection of that ecosystem, which is a highly religious ecosystem. And even if you look at the painting of the medieval ages, we will find stylized figures, covered, religious themes. But what is most important in this page, I think, if you could look at this, which is Latin from the Bible, and this, which is Middle English from Canterbury Tales, the difference between these two is Latin at that time had stopped reflecting the culture of its time. There was no spoken base. It was just a written language that existed in books and especially in cloisters. And just like Sanskrit for us, it became the elite language, which was rather cloistered. So all ventilation, air was cut off. There was no dynamism left in the language. And hence these languages disappeared because it stopped being dynamic. While on the other hand, Middle English has evolved. And if we read it today, it's not that we understand it completely, but we understand melody, small, sleep, night, open eye, nature, pilgrimages. We are familiar. Language has evolved, but it stays alive. So it is very important for languages to be dynamic, to be able to cope with culture, which will automatically remain dynamic. If we go into the next slide, we will see this is the Renaissance period has come in. The literature has changed. We are talking of prince, king, merchant. I think this view is hiding it. I think a very important word there is jester, clown. That was not there in the Middle Ages. So arts, the sculpture, painting, and especially the human is taking a centerpiece. If you look at the painting over here, human figures are emerging. It's no longer the veiled figures, although it's still religious. Okay? And if we see the language over here, language has changed. And this is something we already understand, although it's 400 years old today. More than 400, sorry, 500 almost years old today. We understand this, but the English language survived. Latin did not, because Latin stopped reflecting the culture of its time. And if we look at this is today's culture. this is, and even this, if you look at that lower row, newspaper, textbooks, Harry Potter, that's for storybooks. Say 20 years ago, the lower three were still there, but the upper three, this is from Twitter, then Facebook, WhatsApp, the upper three were not there. So the kind of information that has changed, the kind of people, yes, people are people everywhere. And we still have, we are interacting with friends, family, peers, colleagues, fellow students, neighbors. So the kinds of people haven't really changed. But the ecosystems have changed. We have democracies. The way we look at religion has changed. The systems have changed. And the most important change has been the sources of information. There are newspapers, storybooks, textbooks, but we have social media. And there, the language has changed. So how much does that language get captured in our syllabus, in our schools, colleges, or even in the corporate world, where there are emails and instant messaging? So the language has changed. The language is reflecting in those changes. And this is just a little example of the Twitter, that this is the kind of language we would have never found in a storybook or in a textbook or in a newspaper, where somebody is speaking, like she said, ratty facial hair, not rat face. Ratty is a way we describe unkempt hair. This is casual conversation, but it is written language today. So this is just to illustrate how language is changing. And now, cope with this kind of, I think I've managed to finally take away the window over there. Yes, and now to cope with this kind of dynamism, that is where the systems are evolving, the sources of information are evolving, and we are expected to constantly be abreast of everything. How do we cope? So this is the definition that I'm reading out of cognitive flexibility. A hallmark of human intelligence is flexible cognition, adapting inference to unfamiliar or unexpected situations. So the world around us is constantly throwing us curveballs. And what better time than now, when COVID has struck, 2020, unexpected, unfamiliar. And these events are going to be, from what predictions say, more and more frequent. Now, creatively combining concepts. So concepts, the social concepts, religious concepts, yes, but it is up to the individual to creatively combine those concepts. And modifying familiar knowledge and habits to produce novel representational synthesis or action sequences. So knowledge may be familiar, habits may be familiar, but we have to use them to develop new habits, new sequences. And it is finally language that enhances and permits expression of flexible cognition. And for cognitive flexibility, the biggest barrier to this skill is supposed to be habit. And if one goes onto the internet, one can immediately see the various kinds of exercises that are available. Simple things, like if you're taking one route to, say, the grocery store every day, just take a different route. And immediately our minds become alert because we are thrown off on a different path. And that enhances our cognitive flexibility. Learning a new language enhances it. And also pranayam, meditation. All these factors are supposed to improve our cognitive flexibility, which is our ability basically to switch perspectives, not get frazzled by something new and unexpected, to be able to see something brand new, but find a way to cope with it. So there are lots of exercises, but those are not the exercises we are going to do today. I mean, even things like trying to focus your eyes on two different things, in two corners, all that. But what we are going to do is, how are we going to include cognitive flexibility into English language classes? All right. Now, this is something that I would ask all of you to look at. This is a text. You have received the text. You could be the parent who's received it, or well, if you're not a parent, if you're in the age group where the text could be about you, imagine your parents have received it. And you have two tasks when you read this. The first task, in one word, write the feeling that comes to your mind. You have received this text. What do you feel? What is your reaction? Give one word for it. Note it down. Don't put it into the chat window. I'm going to ask for it later. Just note it down somewhere. And the second task is, the letter has been addressed to you. Who do you identify as people on your side? And give specific names. Suppose you are the mother, then say, my husband, the father. Or you would say, my sister, my brother, or whoever you identify as with you. Just write two names. You might identify many more people in your own group, but just give two relationships. And another thing is, this letter has come from someone. That someone, just think of two people. You could imagine two people who have sent you this letter, that is of that group, whoever has sent you the letter. So just take a minute, two tasks. One word, what is your reaction to this letter? You have received it. Two people who you consider to be on your side. Two people you consider to be on the other side, that is the senders of this letter. Right. I'm assuming you've done that. Now, I'm going to show you another slide. Okay. And again, your task will be identical. When you read that letter, what is your reaction in one word? And two, who are the people on either side? Two names on either side. This is the letter that Romeo's father wrote to Juliet's father. So when you see this, what is your reaction? One word. And who are the people on Romeo's father's side? Who are the people on Juliet's father's side? Two names. I will be asking you to put it into the chat box later, but right now, just note down the names. It's the same letter. I've just added one piece of information. That is, the letter was from Romeo's father to Juliet's father. Now, I'm going to go to the next one. And there, you will have only one task, that when you see it, what is your reaction? In one word. This is what Juliet's father had sent to Romeo's father. In response, Romeo's father had sent that letter. Now, you have one word. Just give one word. How do you feel when you see this? I'll just go into the chat window now. I'll stop sharing, otherwise the chat window is not coming. I'll just stop sharing. And what I would like to, the answers have started coming in, but what I'm going to ask you to do is to put the three words. The first time you saw the letter, you put in one word for your feeling. Second letter, that one word for your feeling. Third, the one word for your feeling, I would like you to put those 3 words next to each other. So if the first one you had written, just say book. It's not book, I know, but book. The second one you had said pencil. Third one you had said eraser. So you write book, pencil, eraser with commas. Okay. First one, angry. Next, shocked. Third, dilemma. All right. First one, threat. Second one, warning. Third one, scary. First one was laugh. Second one was neutral. Third one was cringe. Are there more? Informative, horrified, murder, red apple, attractive dilemma, threat, warning, bloodshed, unwanted, surprise, shocked, fear, pride, warning, disheartened, terrified, angry, initiation, discussion, agreement, pride, laugh, neutral, cringe, warning, threat, revenge, 2 new messages. What are they? Anger, threat, consequence, prejudice, pride, aggression, revenge, enmity. Okay, so I'll go back to the screen. I'll just angry, warning, revenge. I'll just go back to sharing my screen. Egoistic, shocked, angry. There are more, the comments that have come in. Yes, so in each one, I would say is self-defense, honor, revenge. All right, there is that underlying anger everywhere. We are saying there is underlying anger in all 3. But in one case, I found laughter. And it's quite possible. It's quite possible because we can dissociate ourselves from this. When I see this, it's happening to me. And that's going to really make me angry. When I see this, I will say, oh, it's happening to someone else. And my feeling changes slightly. I don't feel it hitting right inside me the way I would have felt for that letter. And in this, I might have felt some amount of anger towards Romeo's father for writing a letter like this. But the moment I see this, that Juliet's father is the one who started it all, then maybe my feelings change slightly to Romeo's father. So although all of them, the themes are of violence, murder, anger, revenge, everything, in each time, every time a bit of new information gets added, the reaction changes a bit. It is not identical. So now we can be we're in an English classroom. So this is and Shakespeare novels, Shakespeare plays, sorry, are what we are teaching. There, instead of going through a text in a regular manner, if we try and introduce something which is a little different, that immediately makes that person, somebody is saying the voice is not clear. I hope it is better. Now I've come a little closer. If we throw a text at the students and keep, thank you, it says clear. And if we throw that text at the student and keep asking them to look at the same text from multiple perspectives, immediately we are forcing that person to shift mindset, to shift perspective. And the same text can cause anger, it can cause confusion, it can make us sad, it can make us laugh. And with that identical text, the thing doesn't have to change, the event doesn't have to change, but there are multiple ways of looking at that event. And that is what we need to introduce in a classroom. It can even be in a language classroom with something like Shakespeare, which is so set and which is so removed from our days in terms of context and terms of people. So culture has often been referred to as the software of the mind, that is what shapes us. But we are also, by consciously exercising the switching of perspectives, the way we can turn around our minds and look at the same text in a different way. In that way, what we become is, we become the producers of our culture as well. We do not have to stay fixed and conditioned as only the product of our culture, but also as the producer of our culture. And that is where cognitive flexibility comes in handy, that it allows us to look at the same event from multiple perspectives simultaneously and develop a point of view which takes in everything, which is not fixed. Now, if we move to the next slide, suppose this is the text that we have prepared. And one way is that becomes the exercise we did just now becomes a very minor kind of a, icebreaker kind of an exercise for this text, where we've immediately asked multiple people to take multiple points of view. And to carry that through, it is also possible that we divide the class into groups. And in the same class, for one group, we give the information that you have received it. How do you feel? And that group prepares either a role play or a kind of, they have to come and talk in front of the class, that what was their feeling when they received the letter. The second group knows it is Juliet's father who has received it, and Romeo's father who has sent that. In that case, that group works and comes up and presents either a role play or how do they think this is going to pan out. Of course, they have to imagine their own. We are not going to go with the ending of the play as it is. Can they change the ending in any way? So that's the second group that talks about it. And in the third group, we say it was Juliet's father who first sent the dagger. So we give these three kinds of information to three different groups. And each group has to come up and speak about their reaction. And the moment that happens, the same text is forcing everyone to think in different ways. And if we want, there are multiple other ways to use the text. We can say, change 7 words in this text to make this letter from Juliet's father to Romeo's father. It should be from Juliet's father to Romeo's father by just changing 7 words over here. I think it's easy for everyone. All we have to do is we have to change all the son into the daughters and the he and the she into the he. So all the gender words change. The moment the gender words change, the letter is changed. And there again, we have been able to flip perspective 180 degrees by just changing 7 words. And that too, again, we are talking of switching perspectives, looking at multiple perspectives, which is cognitive flexibility again. And now, this is somewhere, I think, let me see how much time we have. If you, I would like you to put in, we have just 3-4 minutes left. So in the second task that you had is, when you received the letter, who were the people who you considered as in your team, and who were those in the other person's team? Those. And the second one, who was in Juliet's father's team and Romeo's father's team? I will not get into the chat box activity with this, but I'm sure they were not the same people. When you spoke about yourself, you would have given people like probably your spouse, probably your other family members, your neighbors, your friends. They would have formed the us, the we, while somebody who had sent the letter would definitely be the other party, who would be a different set of people. Just like in Romeo and Juliet's case, they were completely opposed to each other. So they have become opposing parties. And in culture, the most important thing is the in-group and the out-group, the two most important words in culture, in-group and out-group. And the moment we look at, this is our group and that is they are the bad ones, we are the good ones, that's where clashes happen. And cognitive flexibility is the ability to switch these groups, not get fixed into an in-group or slot others in a permanent manner into an out-group, but to understand the in-group and out-group will constantly be flowing. It's going to be dynamic. And through a language activity, we'll be able to show how it's dynamic. If we go to the next one, we will find that, and if we ask, what are the negative words in this text? We can very well say vile, underhand, ugly. We can make this a vocabulary activity. If it's a vocabulary activity, then we'll say vile, underhand, ugly, warning, consequences, dire. These are the negative words. These are the inflammatory words. I don't think anybody would end up saying your, he, his, us, our are the negative words here. But if we look deeply enough, those are far more inflammatory. The moment we form the in-groups and the out-groups, that's when things become inflammatory. That's when the clashes happen. So here we can do a vocabulary exercise with this and say, yes, vile, underhand, hides, these are all inflammatory words. But words like your and she and us and our and your, these can be equally divisive, equally inflammatory. And by using a text like a simple text, which could be just an enjoyable, nice little activity, what we are doing is throwing people right out of their comfort zones, not letting people dissociate completely, saying, oh, Romeo and Juliet happened way back 500 years ago. Now let's look at it from a distance. No, we can look at it up close and personal and see how we can engage with this. So I will stop here now, and I'll just look at some of the, if there are any questions, please put it into the chat box. I'll also look if other questions have come. Producers of culture, not products of culture. Yes. Multiple perspectives. This is exactly the point. Eliciting multiple perspectives. That's it. Multiple perspectives. No one perspective is the final one, the good one. There is no good and bad. There is no black and white. It is in the middle, and it's everywhere. White can become black, black can become white. And we have to be as comfortable from both ends, from both perspectives. I'll stop sharing now. Dr. Nigam, any questions that we should be answering?
I'll try to sum up what you have said, and then we'll have question answer round. Okay. So, Ms. Dolan Gupta talked about dynamism, dynamic culture in a different way. And she's talked about cognitive flexibility, and related it to English language classes, and how this cognitive flexibility can be taught to students, can be introduced to students. How can they develop this? Cognitive flexibility for English language teachers, and how to introduce this adaptability in the classroom. She talked about factors that drive the communication and how do they impact the change. She talked about 3 external influences, which are people, ecosystem, and information. In today's world, we are flooded with information, so it is very difficult to wean out the right thing, the right value for us. Then internal drive is personal repository, because whatever information we receive, it all comes down to us, and our value system is formed out of that. Then she talked about national culture, and she said that each one is unique, and even 2 people who are sitting here, they may not be having the same kind of culture. And in modern times, this individual culture is being promoted, is being encouraged. And this culture can be externalized through the use of language. Then she gave example from Canterbury Tales, and she took the example from Romeo and Juliet. And in Canterbury Tales, she told us that language, the Latin language that was being used there, that was popular at that time, that language disappeared because the language stopped being dynamic. It was unable to cope up with the changing culture of the times. One needs cognitive flexibility to understand, to cope up with dynamic culture, or with the changing systems which are evolving each and every day in front of us. Language comes to a rescue. It enhances and permits expressions of flexible cognition. She advised that we can improve through 2 exercises. One was learning a new language, and another one was yoga, for example, these two examples, and they can improve cognitive flexibility. Then she gave an example of Romeo and Juliet, and she asked people how you will react to the words there, to the information being projected there. How will you do? And she came down with the exercise that you can do this exercise in the classroom while teaching Shakespearean text or other text, by relating the students to them, by asking them to interpret the meaning of the words and the information in those sentences according to their own perspective. That is what I could get, because she quoted one thing, that we have to switch our perspectives. It's not that somebody said that this is love and this is hate. No, but you feel like that. Your own perspective, your own idea is very important. And when we teach literature to our students in this manner, we will find that perspectives are different. We can have comparison between 2 groups who can come and present their own perspective about the particular scene there, about the particular story being told there. So how can you do all this? You can do all this through cognitive flexibility of mind. Then you can understand the perspectives, you can think, and you can evolve the meanings. You can change the meanings there, not the fixed ones, not the traditional ones, but the new perspective can be had about these pieces of literature. Can I come over to question answer session? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, please.
Should I start question answer session? I don't see the slides there.
There were questions in the chat box, and also there was a form.
They are there in front of me. They're there in front of me, Dolon. So I will read out.
Yes. Would you like to select, because quite a few, is in case you have a preference, because we have limited time, so maybe we could do one or two questions.
Okay. Miss Jayashri Singh says, how defamiliarization with pandemics can overstep our past and heritage? In what way ELT trainers will address this overstepping in present day issue via online teaching learning process? I think it's not connected with your topic today. If you want to answer, you can.
I found two questions that were interesting. I mean, I was just running through them. I haven't gone through. One was this activity that I had just, which we've just used today. Can it be for a rural audience also? There was a question. I think it is very, very relevant, because think of the Khap Panchayats today. How different is it from Romeo Juliet? So rural audience, absolutely yes, as well as an urban audience. So this is not an exercise only for an urban audience. It is also for a rural audience. So that was one question. And another one I found, the question was, as academicians, how do we assess? What do we assess or how do we tie up assessments to bring these factors into a classroom? Finally, so my response would be that finally, students prepare for marks. If I know this is going to fetch me marks, that is what I'm going to study. And if I know I'm going to be assessed on the way I perceive things, the way I am able to think critically and give an informed opinion based on information and showcase how I was able to absorb all the information, analyze, synthesize, use my personal filters, and come out with something that makes sense and has meaning, I think that language, if that is there in the assessment parameter, the student will think. The student will be forced not to focus entirely on what is the right answer or what is the wrong answer or what is the right language. Of course, language is important. Of course, grammar, vocabulary is going to be important. But if this factor can also be brought in to the assessment, then we will be focusing on this as well.
Two more questions.
Yes, please.
Two more questions seem to be interesting ones. How one can bring in culture and language together while teaching children in an inclusive classroom? What strategies or activities can be adopted for the same?
This is, as a matter of fact, a lot of work is happening in this space already. In that, how does one bring this right into the classrooms at the nursery level as well? And one example, I mean, there are many ways. There is a very good book that has been published by the National Association of Education in the US on how one can bring these in. It's a complete book on it, very interesting ones, and it's for children. And there was one example I found which I'd like to share today, that in Iceland, I believe that when they use color pencils, there is one color that we often refer to as skin color. They have stopped using the word skin color. Because which skin are you referring to? Is it the light skin or the dark skin or which skin? So these are very simple ways of making a school, primary level classroom inclusive of culture. And that's communication. We are naming a color.
One more question, Pushpalata. She says, though language and culture are intertwined, yet culture of the taught, the teacher, and of the language are not included in teaching. What can we do to include this for better learning outcomes?
I think the first thing it rests with huge responsibilities with the teachers, that we first of all open our minds. And there have been so many occasions, I think all of us have felt it, that we've said something and after a while we realize, I was saying it with a closed mind. That was just my view. It was not an inclusive view. So the first thing is to open our own minds, for us to be able to look at things from multiple perspectives. And once we have practiced it, we have walked down that path, we can then help our students walk down that path. Otherwise, it gets a little difficult. First, we have to open our own minds.
Thank you, Dolan. And now I hand over the mic to Professor Mohan Raj.
This was very efficiently conducted session, and the participants had asked a large number of questions. Even on the chat box, there were brilliant comments and suggestions. I felt really gratified. And personally, it was a wonderful learning experience for me. For as a language teacher, I saw how you could use one small stimulus for a variety of activities, almost composing of almost every skill, every language skill. That was wonderful. And there was a question on assessment. I thought assessment on these things should be more norm-based rather than any criteria based. It should be a largely open type of an assessment, because any answer is as acceptable as any other answer. I thought, but this was brilliant. Congratulations to you, and congratulations, Dr. Nigam, for summarizing the talk so brilliantly and also conducting the session so very well. This webinar has really been a success, and there are several people who are involved who are largely responsible for the success of this. From the time of conception to the execution, the people who have helped are Dr. Rajgopalan, Dr. Sanjay Arora, Dr. Ramani, Dr. Ilango, Dr. Stravan, Dr. Xavier, Dr. Mithun, and a host of others. I'm not sure if I can mention everyone. Before we conclude, here are a few announcements. One, please copy the link to enroll yourselves as members of the LTI if you're already not done that. Two, access the link we have provided to give us your feedback. This is helpful in making the future presentations more relevant and meaningful to all of us. You are entitled to a certificate, but there are certain conditions. You must have attended at least 6 out of the 9 webinars we have had this month. And your certificates will be dispatched in batches. So if your friend and you have both attended the certificate, and if your friend gets it and you don't get it, just don't get worried. You will get it a little later. That's all. We are not able to send all the certificates at the same time. We have to stagger them. So this is because of the system constraints that we have. 4, we would like you all to register yourselves for the future webinars. We have provided you the proper links on the chat box. You must have noticed that. This month we had quite a few webinars. Starting from June, we will have only 1 webinar a week, and that will be on Sundays. And also please remember, you might register well in advance, but not all those who register can be admitted into the room. This is because we have limited space. There is a possibility to accommodate only 100 people, including the organizers. So this puts a lot of constraint on us. So if you are not admitted into the room, please don't worry. These are being live streamed, and you can access the webinar on YouTube, and that link is also given to you. Our next meeting will be on Sunday, the 7th June, and this will be yet another novel type of a presentation. We will have a debate organized by the Kanpur chapter. The topic for the debate is online education. So online education is doing more harm than good. I'm sure the topic is quite interesting, stimulating, and I'm sure Many of you will be back with us. We hope to see you all. Bye for now. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.